And with the traditional declaration of sine die, the longest session of the Georgia General Assembly in over 30 years came to a close. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Susan Hoffman. Tonight we're going to have highlights of this final day and the legislation that made it through both the House and the Senate in time for the deadline.
Plus, we'll have reaction from leadership and details about some of the session's most contested bills. But first, Governor Barnes' reflections on the session.
Well, Governor Barnes gets most of the legislation that he wanted this session, such as a property tax relief, a bill to stop predatory lenders, and the Shop Georgia tax-free holidays. The governor's agenda takes a hit. For the first time since he took office, Governor Barnes did not get every piece of legislation he'd hoped for. His DUI legislation died in the wee hours of the session. He expressed great regret during a post-sine die press conference.
Now, we know that drunk driving is preventable. We know that because we have toughened the laws over the last few years, and as a result of that, there has been a decrease in those who have lost their lives on the highways and roads of our state. Last year, the General Assembly created a commission to look into driving under the influence and see how to close loopholes and to make our laws even better. I appointed to that commission, in my appointments, some of the top law enforcement officials in this state, some of the top prosecuting officials in this state. And they made certain suggestions to me. And unfortunately, the bill at the last moment did not pass. But I promise you we'll be back next year on that piece of legislation and even tougher laws on drunk drivers. It's something that I'm dedicated to, it's something that's preventable, and we're going to do it.
A spokesperson for Governor Barnes says the DUI legislation died when lawmakers learned of problems with technical language in the bill. At today's press conference, I asked the governor, of all the legislative victories, which would he hang his hat on in the fall? He jokingly referred to a bill naming Georgia's official prepared food.
Grits. No. We finally got that passed. You know, there's many things that I'm proud of that over the last 4 years. I mean, you look back on the last 4 years and they've been active ones. We've taken the first steps toward changing and improving education and giving the chance to every child in this state, regardless of where that child is born and regardless of the economic condition of the parents and regardless of the color of the skin of that child, a chance for a quality education with high standards and accountability and lower class sizes. And so education is definitely something I'm proud of, but the other issues that we've tackled I'm proud of too. So I mean, there'll be a lot to talk about.
One measure the governor did not push this session but did last year and will in the future, along with DUI legislation, is raising the driving age to 17 in Atlanta.
The longer that we delay putting into effect reforms to make sure that teenage drivers, our youthful drivers, have more experience before they enter into these very congested and dangerous roads, particularly in urban areas, that we're going to see more of those teen deaths.
If you win, will you be back next year?
Yes, we're going to come back with DUI or teen driving legislation until we make sure that we make a substantial dent in saving those lives.
Despite his future thoughts, the governor is again relishing the many 2002 legislative victories, citing more financial and personal security for Georgians, more classrooms, teacher pay raises, and, of course, the natural gas bill. And for more on that, we go to Gerald.
Susan, the last-minute passage of natural gas legislation is a big win for Governor Barnes. On this final day of the General Assembly, lawmakers approved a bill designed to provide relief for consumers who have coped with many problems caused by deregulation. Hamilton Northcutt has been following this story throughout the session, and she is here with her final live report. Hamilton.
Legislators predicted that this item on the governor's agenda might not be decided until the very last day of the session, and they were right. Lawmakers and staff from the governor's office worked all day Thursday and through the night here at the Capitol, finishing the final version of the natural gas bill at 7 this morning.
We wanted to make sure that when we dealt with natural gas on this scale, this time, that we made sure that we did everything we knew how to do to get it right, to provide for hopefully lower prices for customers, to provide for consumer protections for customers here in Georgia, to provide for increased competition by letting the EMCs get involved in the natural gas business. All those things wrapped up makes it not complicated in the sense of disagreeing between the governor and the House and the Senate, but in terms of just simply getting the right wording in the legislation.
And the primary objective of this bill is to protect gas consumers who have coped with unfair billing and sky-high prices, the results of deregulation.
If a marketer or distributing company furnishes the gas, or subsidiary thereof furnishes the gas, then they have to give these consumers a bill of rights so that they cannot abuse them, they can't false bill them, they can't slam them or cram them, change their service, add things to it to make sure. And then, of course, we have a universal service fund that will be triple so that there's money to take care of low-income citizens in emergencies. And I think in addition to that, you've got some protections, some additional people competing, the EMCs.
And as soon as Governor Barnes signs this bill into law, the 42 EMCs in Georgia will be able to sell natural gas. That will create a lot more competition in the market. Reporting live from the Capitol, I'm Hamilton Northcutt for Lawmakers.
Hamilton, thanks for the report, and thank you for all your great work this session. We appreciate it.
House Speaker Tom Murphy, like many others, agreed the natural gas bill was one of the highlights for this legislative session. I spoke with him just after his ceremonial dash from the House. I also asked him about his decision to run again and the budget. Take a look.
We did good on the predatory lending. We did on the gas bill. We did good on the budget. I have absolutely no complaints about anything we did. I'm just happy that it's time to go home.
Are you going to come back?
Who knows?
Not saying.
No, I'll make up my mind in a few days.
All right. You think it'll be a few days, not a few weeks?
Oh, no, it won't be a few weeks. I'll make up my mind. I'm going to visit around over my district. I got a physical exam coming up in about 10 days. Everything goes well there, then I'll see what I want to do.
Will you lean toward running if your physical exam?
I'm not leaning one way or the other.
You gotta lean one way or the other.
No, I don't.
Do you not expect a lot of pressure?
I'm standing straight up.
Do you not expect a lot of pressure from members of the House to run again on the Democratic?
I had that all year long. I would venture to say I've had half the Republicans ask me to run again.
Reapportionment, initial reaction when that decision came back.
We had to really persist in order to get it to where the reapportionment was done, and I'm glad that we hung tough on that and got the Senate done, and I feel fairly confident, and the lawyers have advised me that they feel fairly confident that the Washington court will accept what we did in the Senate now. So that would get us through reapportionment, we'd be in good shape.
A lot of belt-tightening, a lot of people disappointed.
Oh, it's been terrible. The economy has been terrible. I noticed the revenue report for last month was off, I believe, right at 7%. I've got the figures on my desk. 5 point maybe. Anyhow, we're off bad for the year. I hope it will turn around and our economy will start to grow again. We're so fortunate that we're in the fiscally soundest state in the nation, though. Not any other state in the nation can come close to being where we are. States around us are bankrupt.
Very popular measure was the Shop Georgia, and all the stores really returned information that said it was a huge move. That alone should help Democrats in the fall. Would you agree?
I hope so. I think it. I really didn't favor that to start with, but the more I thought about it and the more I see, I think it was good for our economy.
Well, after a late night spent negotiating, the House and Senate were able to come up with a predatory lending bill they could both adopt. And Wandy Lawson is live at the Capitol with the outcome of that legislation. And Wandy.
Well, Gerald, when the conference committee completed their compromises last night, they had in fact made 14 changes. They had decided to remove a House amendment that would have exempted brokers and originators. They'd clarified a provision to keep yield spread premiums from going back to the lender. They've exempted some points and fees from the calculation of high-cost loans, removed the possibility that a creditor would have to pay for credit counseling, and required a 1-month notice for non-judicial foreclosures. Leaders in both the House and the Senate hailed the bill as the toughest predatory lending law in the country.
We ensured that the predatory lenders in this state better beware beginning October 1 of 2002. We also ensured that the decent, honest, fair lenders, which comprise a huge majority of lenders in this state, have nothing to be concerned about in this legislation.
Now, the main thing I want you to remember about this bill is this, and that is that what you have done, in the opinion of the people from North Carolina and in the opinion of several other states and attorneys that we talk with around the states and bankers, you will be agreeing to the toughest predatory lending law in the nation.
Now, the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America lauded this bill as a tremendous victory for the working people, not only of Georgia, but nationwide. They went on to say that the major predatory lenders have been defeated, and NACA will use the momentum to bring this to states in every part of the country. The American Association of Retired Persons also supported the legislation, but they also look forward to future laws that require court hearings for foreclosures.
Because currently, what they can do is they can put a notice in a newspaper and sell it on the courthouse steps. Now, what we did get was they have to give you 30 days notice, and that's good.
Now, one amendment that the conference committee did not adopt was Senator Fort's suggestion that flipping be prevented on all home loans. The current bill allows the lender to refinance at no gain to the borrower after 5 years. Reporting live from the Capitol, I'm in Wandy Lawson for Lawmakers.
Great job this session, Wandy. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor didn't get all of his legislative agenda through this session. His bill creating the felony crime of child endangerment ended up in a conference committee. The Senate okayed that, but the House didn't. They ran out of time. The Lieutenant Governor did say he fared well with other items on his agenda.
Took every last minute to get that agenda through, but I'm really most gratified of the support that we've had in the House and Senate, and really proud that we move forward on a really strong school discipline bill to support our teachers. Really excited about the removal of the statute of limitations on the 7 deadly sins, and really pleased that natural gas, predatory lending were dealt with, and that we passed a budget that spent fewer dollars this year than last, even taking into consideration the normal inflation in state governments.
On another issue, Lieutenant Governor Taylor says he doesn't think the long session will have any real impact on upcoming primaries or on the general election.
Just in the nick of time, Representative Mike Snow's crematory bill was adopted today. House Bill 1481 deals with the final disposition of dead bodies, the only one of 3 crematory-related bills to pass both the House and the Senate this year. David Zelski is standing by live from the House chambers with more on this. David.
Well, Susan, this year the small mountain town of Noble, Georgia became well known worldwide, but for all the wrong reasons. Now, the House and Senate proposed bills throughout the session that would keep this tragedy from ever happening again, but once again it was a long session with many hitches, so it was very hard and the bill almost died.
Most people thought there was already a law against the desecration of dead bodies in the state of Georgia. They were wrong.
I think it was an anonymous tip to the EPA. They came out, they contacted the local authorities here, the Walker County Sheriff's Office, after seeing a skull on the property.
The cleanup costs in Walker County took a major bite out of the state budget and received no help from the federal government. But to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again, the legislature adopted House Bill 1481 in barely enough time.
Everyone had to understand that this had to go through to keep this from ever happening again.
I think that, well, they understand, but it gets lost in the process. If I hadn't have kept real close ties on it tonight, and if I had, and to be honest with you, some of the Republican members of the House came to me and said, we're going to filibuster on that fellow ahead of you right there if you don't get ahead of him. And I said, well, thank you very much. And I kind of end-runned ahead of Mr. Rickard, and I don't know. He's my friend, but I hope he won't hold that against me.
And once again, the party's working together.
That's right. Well, parties working together. That's exactly right.
Now, House Bill 1481 eventually became a combination of 3 different bills, but in the end achieved their goal and head to the governor. Reporting live from the House chambers, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
David, our thanks to you as well. You've done a great job for us.
Thank you, Susan.
Well, this tip, if you're looking for information about the outcome of a specific bill that we haven't mentioned, we'd like to recommend a website that is a valuable resource. Just go to www.legis.state.ga.us/legis. That website's a great research tool we at Lawmakers use on a regular basis.
Governor Barnes' bioterrorism bill got final approval today. The bill would give Georgia governors the power to declare certain health emergencies that could result from a bioterrorism attack. There had been opposition to the bill because of original provisions mandating vaccinations and controlling some gun sales. The governor's Senate Floor Leader Steve Thompson said that those measures had been dealt with, and he pleaded with his colleagues not to let misconceptions about the bill prevent them from voting for it.
So it does what I think everybody's intention was in the beginning to do, and it also doesn't impede the sale. During times of emergency, if a store is open and you pass the little background check, then you can buy a firearm at Walmart. So, a legal firearm at Walmart. So it accomplishes that. Now, some people have trouble with the vaccination part of the language. Now, folks, please be reasonable. This still has a medical exemption in it. I mean, an exemption, a religious exemption for what you believe. But now, if you got smallpox, forget it. I don't want you coming to my house. And I'm just telling you, don't vote against this bill concerning terrorism when you still got a religious exemption, with the exception of something that's going to threaten the lives and put a plague across Georgia that will do what the enemy intended. For heaven's sakes, don't be our own worst enemy and abetting the other enemy. So please don't let that stand in your way. This is too important to vote against. That would be a vote I think you wouldn't want to look back on. I truly believe that, and I mean that sincerely, not to criticize you. Please adopt this.
The Senate did vote to agree to the House substitute to the governor's bioterrorism bill. That means it is on its way to the governor for his signature.
And Governor Barnes' health insurance consumer protection bill got final approval in the Senate today as they voted to accept the House substitute to that measure, Senate Bill 476. The bill in part gives consumers more clout in dealing with managed health care organizations, including quicker notification of cancellation and more options in dealing with unfair practices.
The governor's identity fraud bill got final approval on this last day of the session. The Senate voted to go along with the House version of the bill, which took off specific fines and penalties for businesses who fail to take proper measures to protect their customers' private financial information. Here's Assistant Floor Leader Charlie Tanksley.
It remains substantially as it left here with this exception. After much negotiation in the House, the provisions trying to specify damages, punitive damages, treble damages, and all of that were simply removed. All the parties who were involved in that have indicated their agreement to this final version. I would ask your support.
Again, the governor's ID fraud bill passed. Judges could still set specific fines and penalties for businesses found guilty of violating this new law.
Another of the governor's bills to get final passage on the final day was Senate Bill 467. The Senate voted to agree with the House substitute to Governor Barnes' family violence bill, which provides some intervention programs and family violence counseling.
And Lieutenant Governor Taylor's school bus driver safety bill got final passage today. Senator Michael Meyer von Bremen urged the Senate to adopt the conference committee report on Senate Bill 291.
It is a very important package to the Lieutenant Governor, who has worked long and hard on protecting the school bus drivers and our teachers. It provides for discipline against students who physically strike a teacher or a school bus driver. If they physically strike and cause harm, then they may be expelled from the school system. If they intentionally cause or insult the teacher, then they may just be suspended. Very, very important legislation. It also deals with conduct on the buses as the students are driving on the buses. I urge that you adopt this conference committee report. It has been a 2-year work in progress bill. Very, very important to get it out.
His pleas work. The conference committee report was adopted. The vote on that was 43-1. The bill goes to the governor.
As the 2002 session wrapped up, senators expressed general support for the predatory lending bill that has been adopted, but on other subjects, including reapportionment, there was more debate.
We feel real confident that the courts are going to uphold what we sent them. Of course, the D.C. courts 2 days ago retained jurisdiction over the matter, so they're waiting on the maps to come back. And they specifically cited Senate District 2, 12, and 26
And those 3 districts, the DOJ, Department of Justice, had done some recommended maps, and basically what we adopted is what DOJ had submitted to the courts, so we feel real confident the courts will approve the plan. They made every Republican seat safe, they made a lesser number of them, but they gave us more opportunities, so it'll be a competitive map for the next 10 years. But it's not whether it hurt Republicans or not. It hurt the people of Georgia. Those gerrymandered districts are hard for people to serve. They're hard for voters to determine who their representatives and influence the elections or their votes after they're elected.
Some senators reflected on the bills that they had been unable to pass this session but would like to revive next year. Senator Vincent Fort spoke of his racial profiling bill, Senator Eric Johnson of a Republican income tax plan, and Senator Donzella James about a failed DUI child endangerment law.
Citizens should not be pulled over or stopped on the highways of this state just because they're African American. That's an issue that's not going to wait next year.
I think the gas deregulation is a political posturing for the campaign, and I'm disappointed that the main Republican idea of eliminating the income tax on Georgians over 65 was killed, and the Democrats raised taxes on people in DeKalb and Fulton and on businesses instead.
I think that it was just politics, because there was nothing wrong with that bill. In fact, I hope that we can pass it in the future, even though I'll be gone.
Senator James, of course, was referring to her run for the U.S. Congress.
At the beginning of the 2002 General Assembly, many lawmakers said that the budget would be the most important piece of legislation they would consider this year. Shortly after Speaker Murphy and Lieutenant Governor Taylor gavelled the session to a close, House Majority Leader Larry Walker called the budget one of the triumphs of this session.
I think the biggest success was handling real apportionment. You know, we had some criticism for waiting like we did, but I think we did the right thing in retrospect, and we got it handled. The budget's always the biggest thing you do, and the most important thing. We passed another fiscally sound, conservative budget, and yet a budget that I think meets the needs of the people of the state of Georgia.
Lawmakers who have been working on the Newborn Safety Act since 1996 say its passage is another 2002 success story.
The bill basically says that if a young woman is in such dire straits that she needs to place a baby in a safe place, which is a hospital setting where newborns are born all the time, that she can leave the baby, and then if she needs to reconsider, she can always come back and get the baby at a later date. It does not try to destroy families. It tries to make sure that the baby gets adequate medical attention as well as nutrition.
Republicans are still smarting over their failed battle against redistricting maps that minority leaders call unfair. They also claim Democrats stole ideas and the credit for legislation that puts money back in taxpayers' pockets.
Tax credits are our idea. The sales tax, that was my bill. And I got to Internet driver's license. That's a success. That was our bill. That was a Republican initiative. We laid out this program at the beginning of the session. You know, theft of our ideas is okay. Just implement them to help the people of Georgia.
Looking ahead to the challenges lawmakers will face next year, House Appropriations Chairman Terry Coleman says it will be difficult to continue funding infrastructure to keep pace with Georgia's growth while coping with reduced revenues and a recovering economy.
Several state senators are not returning next year. Some are running for other offices, others are retiring, and others no longer live in their districts after reapportionment. Here are a few of the more poignant farewells.
You got to know I've had a remarkable career here, but it was because of people and those who've gone before us. For there are only truly about 6 or 7 of us that are still left here when I came here. But so many of these fellows put their arms around me and gave me strength and took an interest in me and helped me as a young man to do some great, great things that I was a part of. And God bless all of you and all of them.
I appreciate what you've taught me. I love you all. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator.
I have served in a body with others who serve the public, who are public servants and not self-servants. And I have really been proud to serve with all of you. But I'm his Mimi, and I call him J. Bird Churchwell, the future governor of Georgia.
I want to bring beside me my wife, Bessie, and my son. The torch is yours.
And we bid farewell to all the men, including others indicating that they won't return. Senators Mike Pollack, Phil Gingrey, Bart Ladd, and Greg Hecht. In other news, every year on April 12th, the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust meets at the Capitol to remember the horrific events that took place and to pray for those who were lost. Lawmakers David Zelski attended.
This is the first year to date when the ceremony took place while the legislature was in session, and several were around to share their prayers and take in the powerful exhibits created by Georgia's own students.
I guess it's people are still understanding and learning what happened 60-some-odd years ago.
Yes, the Commission produces materials, and we work with various partners. One of our partners is Georgia Public Broadcasting, and we create materials and videos and study guides to put in front of teachers and help them get across the character traits that they are required to teach, and they do it by teaching the lessons of the Holocaust. And every year since 1995 we have had an art and writing contest, and it's grown also because as teachers hear about it, they encourage their students to participate. It is strictly a voluntary situation, and as the people who were in attendance today can attest, there are literally students from all across Georgia.
An artistic and educational way to learn about a horrible time in history. I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
And for those of you with access to the internet, you can watch the 2002 season of Lawmakers online. You can simply visit our website at gpb.org. Lawmakers has been streamed all session long, but they've all been archived as well. So every night that we've been on the air, you can go back and tap into it and take a look, if that interests you.
And we have time for a few thank yous tonight, and our staff is a large one, so we can't mention all 30-some-odd people who work on this program. But to all of them, you are thoroughgoing professionals. You have made this a lot easier than it would be in other circumstances. Thank you for your friendship and your professionalism. One other note, Chuck Baker, who worked on this program for some 18, 19 years as a producer and a director, is home watching tonight. Chuck has now retired. Chuck, we thank you for your many years of hard work and your good wishes today.
And good wishes in the future. Please stay tuned right now for Georgia Business Report. That is next here on Georgia Public Television.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 40th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly, and the final one. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerald Bryant.
I'm Susan Hoffman. From all of us here, good night. We'll see you next year.
Bye-bye.